name is Halpern, and the title of my performance is A Man, a Plan, a Dream, Robert Goddard. May I begin?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Charles Manser, and I was one of Dr. Robert Goddard's assistants. I just wanted to share with you a newspaper article. Men have stepped off of our planet and onto another world for the first time in history. The first words that Mission Commander Neil Armstrong said as he planted his boots upon the surface of the moon were, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." One small step. Let me tell you where that step began, with my former boss, Robert Goddard. Although Dr. Goddard faced tremendous challenges, both economic and personal, throughout his life, he still advanced the study of rocketry more than anyone else in history. In fact, I'd say that Goddard's work could be considered a turning point in history, because his efforts are seen on every spacecraft today. Well, how did it all begin? When Goddard was just 7 years old, in 1889, he became interested in spaceflight, and over the years he was inspired by various books, particularly From the Earth to the Moon by Jules Verne, and a passage from this book reads, and I quote, 38, 39, 40, fire! Instantly, Murchison's finger pressed the key of the electric battery. An appalling, unprecedented, unearthly report followed instantly. An immense spout of fire shot up from the bowels of the earth, and only a very few of the spectators were able to obtain a momentary glimpse of the projectile victoriously cleaving the air in the midst of the fiery vapors. You can imagine how this would have inspired young Robert. Inference work. Astronauts were sent to the moon with a giant cannon. And while Goddard knew that a cannon blast could not send a spacecraft that far, he thought that a better transportation method could surely be constructed. When he was 17, in 1899, Goddard climbed a cherry tree. And while pruning this tree, he decided to devote his life to, as he put it, constructing some device which had even the possibility of ascending to Mars. 4 years later, as Goddard was graduating from high school, the Wright brothers flew their first airplane. Goddard went on to obtain a PhD in physics, and as World War I was heating up, he began his work. From the very beginning, Goddard wished to work independently, and his aversion to working in a group was often detrimental. Nonetheless, Goddard acquired his first patents in 1914. These patents included, well, I'm sure Dr. Goddard could explain his patents better than I could. My first patents continue to be among my most popular, but really they were quite simple. I patented a rocket nozzle that boosted fuel efficiency tenfold, as well as a multiple stage rocket that could lift to great altitudes, and a multiple charge rocket which could also, theoretically, work efficiently. Soon after patenting these devices, my popularity surged, but I began receiving scathing editorials. One, ran by the New York Times, stated that there was no way that rockets could work in the vacuum of space. In response to that particular editorial, I proved to the world that rockets could work in a vacuum, using a bell jar and a gun, and then through extensive testing. I also worked for the military, and as World War I was coming to an end, I developed a rocket weapon that later became known as the bazooka. In addition to working for the military, creating patents, deflecting editorials, and trying to perfect the multiple charged rocket, I decided to get married, and on June 21st, 1924, I married the love of my life, Esther Kisk. She became my photographer, cinematographer, bookkeeper, and curator of my documents. Throughout our life together, she devoted her life to my work in every way, and I will be forever grateful for her contributions. After our honeymoon, I began developing a rocket that was propelled by liquid rather than solid fuels. And in 1926, I launched the world's first liquid-fueled rocket to ever fly in Auburn, Massachusetts. It was a simple rocket, as this model shows, only a gasoline and liquid oxygen tank connected by pipes to a rocket engine. That was it. Later, the rockets I used would have the fuel tanks at the top and the engines at the bottom, but despite the topsy-turvy configuration of this early model, it worked. With a liquid-fueled rocket now established, I had to search for funds to research and conduct rocket launches. Unfortunately, the Great Depression had just begun, making it difficult for me to find these funds. However, I had the good fortune of meeting Charles Lindbergh, who in turn introduced me to Daniel Guggenheim. Guggenheim decided to support my work, and the Guggenheim Endowment ended up providing funds for 15 years. With funds secured, Lindbergh encouraged me to move to Roswell, New Mexico, a somewhat more open and safer area for my rockets to launch. Then my team and I, including Mr. Manser, began to build and fly rockets at a fever pitch. On average, we prepared and flew a rocket every month. Around this time, Henry Ford was calling for his 40-hour work week, but I can assure you that my team and I worked considerably more than that. All that work, however, paid off, and thanks to innovations such as small fuel pumps and gyroscope steering, our rockets flew to higher and higher altitudes. In 1937, a larger version of this rocket, shown here, ended up reaching an altitude of almost 9,000 feet. Throughout my lifetime, I have created 3 volumes of research notes and 214 patents, and already I see that my work is beginning to change the world. Maybe one day it will lead to men on the moon or even Mars. That may sound ridiculous today, but as I always say, every vision is a joke until the first man accomplishes it. Farewell, friends. In 1945, as World War II was coming to an end, Dr. Goddard passed away due to throat cancer at the age of 62. As the article in the Coronet magazine entitled The Vindication of Robert Goddard notes, Mrs. Goddard continued her husband's work after his death, securing his legacy by submitting 131 of Goddard's patents posthumously, establishing recognition for him through the creation of the Goddard Space Flight Center, and advocating for him. Goddard faced tremendous difficulties during his life. He completed his work during 2 world wars and the Great Depression. In addition, his desire to work mostly independently resulted in additional hardships. Still, Goddard advanced the study of rocketry more than anybody else I know. Goddard, rightfully considered the father of modern rocketry, made space travel possible. And now, today, as men explore the surface of the moon, I am reminded of one of my favorite quotes from Professor Goddard. It is difficult to say what is impossible, for the dream of yesterday is the hope of today and the reality of tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.